Vipassana Kanika Samadhi is defined in the commentary as momentary unification of the mind. Kanika Samadhi is defined as the momentary unification of the mind. In other words, concentration in the Kanika Samadhi, that concentration lasting only for a moment. But when it occurs uninterruptedly on its object or phenomenon in a single mood, and it's not overcome by the opposite force. The opposite force here refers to 5 mental hindrances and other defilements. So at the time, the concentration as if the mind is fixed on the phenomenon immovably, as if in absorptions. But the mind is absorbed into the phenomenon only for a moment. It's different from the absorption concentration attained by concentration meditators, samatha meditators. When samatha meditators have attained absorption concentration, then their mind is absorbed into that object of concentration for a long for a period of time, as long as the samatha meditators have the effort to fix the mind on that object of concentration, and the mind will not move to other objects or will not be distracted by other objects. So the mind of the samatha meditators is absorbed into their object concentration, and most of the object concentration concept or panyati. But it is different from the practice of mindfulness meditation or vipassana meditation. Vipassana meditators have to take ultimate verities, or in Pali, Paramatha Dhamma, as their objects of mindfulness. Here, Paramatha Dhamma, according to the teachings of Abhidhamma, Chitta, or Chitta means mind or consciousness, Cetasika, mental concomitants, and Rupa, materiality, or in other words, the physical phenomena. So, these Paramatha Dhamma are known as conditioned phenomena. Every conditioned phenomenon doesn't last more than a moment. But if meditators have not yet developed a strong Kanika Samadhi or Vipassana Samadhi, then they can't realize that every phenomenon subject to instant arising and passing away. Sometimes meditators might experience that a process of phenomenon, for example, a process of painful sensation lasts for a few minutes, 10 minutes, or half an hour, and so on. This because the meditators' samadhi or concentration is not developed, is not yet strong enough. So in order to see the true natures of the conditioned phenomena, there was the nama and rupa. So nama here consists of a chitta and cetasika, of rupa is a material phenomena or physical phenomena. Meditators have to develop concentration. And in order to attain deeper concentration, meditators have to develop constant and continuous mindfulness for a longer and longer period of time. So that needs virya or mental effort. Mental effort or virya, one of the 5 mental faculties, is one of the is an important factor to be successful in meditation. For example, the practice of mindfulness. So at the beginning of the practice, mindfulness is not attentive, not precise, not energetic. So meditators have to train themselves to increase their effort of mental effort gradually. In other words, they have to increase the effort gradually so that their attention of the mind shall become stronger and stronger. Thus, they shall be able to pay stronger and stronger attention to any object or phenomenon that has appear at that present moment. Mindfulness is full attention, or it's not partial attention. But at the beginning of practice, meditators may not able to pay full attention to an object that has appeared at that present moment. For example, at the beginning of retreat, when meditators are mindful of their basic object of sitting meditation, either the movements of rising or falling or sitting or the touching or the contact that chosen by the meditators. When meditators are mindful, one of these basic objects of sitting meditation, their mind still conscious of other things. For example, sound or noise, or sometimes they could feel a little bit of pain, and so on. Sometimes meditators might be thinking that they were mindful and note the rising movements. At the same time, the mind also perceives other phenomena for example, some pain, hearing some sound, and so on. So as if the mind perceives 3 or 4 phenomena at the same moment. So meditators have to increase the effort gradually so that they can focus more and more attention on one object or phenomenon that, meditators were mindful at that time. So when meditators increase their mental effort, they, while increasing their mental effort, they should not experience too much of tension to their mind, or they experience mentally tired, or some strong tightness, sensation of tightness appears, for example, in their head, and so on. While meditators increase their virya, they may feel little bit of tension or tired. So it's quite natural to feel little bit of tension, tired. When meditators have to increase their mental effort gradually, and they have to mindful note from one moment to next moment, from one phenomenon to next phenomenon. So as long as meditators did not feel much tension, the mind becomes too restless because of a strong effort. Sometimes when meditators desire to gain deep concentration in a short time, they might put a lot of effort in their practice. Sometimes if the effort is too strong, the mind may become restless. Some meditators will feel tension, tired, or tightness of the mind and body. But meditators may not know how much effort, what is the right amount of effort. So meditators have to learn from their experience. If they put more effort, in other words, they try to be more attentive. If they do feel some tension, then they can take that tension as an object of mindfulness. This is the guideline of practice. Meditators need not have to relax the mind when there's a tension. Meditators have to learn to take that tension as a object of mindfulness, object of vipassana meditation, so that when meditators could mindful note the tension as it really occurs, then they realize that phenomenon tension is not a permanent process. It's subject to arising and passing away. So meditators have to increase their virya gradually. At the beginning of practice, meditators may not be able to perceive the beginning of a process of any phenomenon. In the passing away of any phenomenon precisely. For example, sometimes meditators perceive the thinking or wandering mind quite late. Sometimes they realize the thinking is had gone. Then they only come to realize a few moments later. So meditators should note what is arising at that present moment. That thinking or that thoughts, I miss to mindful note the thinking, a process of thinking a few moments ago. So that thoughts should be taken as an object of mindfulness. The thought had gone, cannot be taken as an object of mindfulness. Mindfulness can't mindful of an object that had gone. Mindfulness can't mindful of something that's not yet appear or not yet arisen. So sometimes meditators could not perceive right at the moment of arising of any phenomenon. At the moment of knowing that this object, that from that moment, meditators mindful and know it. For example, sometimes meditators cannot perceive the beginning of the rising process of the movements of abdomen. Sometimes meditators cannot perceive right at the beginning of the process of foreign movements and other processor movements in their walking meditation or mindfulness of daily routine activities. Unless meditators purposely keep their attention of their mind or awareness all the time at the area of the abdomen. For example, sometimes meditators focus their attention at the abdomen, although they did not perceive any movements. They keep their mindfulness there. Then when there's a movements of rising, then that awareness could follow the movements arising instantly. At the end, the process of rising movements, the movements are stopped, or we can say it disappear. Then the next process movements, whatever falling, did not appear instantly. Then some meditators keep their mindfulness there. Then a few moments later, process of falling has appeared. Then that awareness that was following the process of rising movements now could follow the beginning of the process of falling movements and so on. So in that way, meditators might be thinking that they can mindful of the process movements accurately or precisely, but they may not. Actually, the way of practice is not following the guidelines of the practice. The guidelines of the mindfulness meditation say that when when this object has appeared at that time, the meditators can mindful and note that object. So at the beginning of practice, the mindfulness may not be precise at the beginning of practice. Notice the mind notices the arising of any phenomenon uh, a bit late or quite late. For example, sometimes meditators perceive the thinking in the middle of the thinking, not right at the beginning of the thinking. Or sometimes meditators perceive the movements of pushing during walking in the middle of the process, not right at the beginning. Unless meditators purposely control the movements so that they can mindful note right at the beginning of the movements. So it's important that meditators should not exercise control over the arising of the phenomena, especially the movements, the movements in the walking meditation or movements that the meditators were doing in their daily routine activities. The meditators exercise some control over, especially over the processor movements, especially in walking meditation, or mindful of the movement of abdomens. They put a strong effort to keep their mindfulness at the abdomen there. They shall be able to develop concentration, but they may not be able to gain a clear experience of vipassana meditation. In other words, they may not able to develop wisdoms well. Sometimes that way of practice inclines towards concentration, not development of wisdoms or insight knowledge. So meditators need to be patient. It takes time to develop mindfulness correctly. So what's been emphasized here is the mental factor of mindfulness. Mindfulness sati is one of the cetasikas. So when we practice mindfulness meditation, this mental factor or cetasika or sati should becomes the dominant factor, the dominant mental factors that should be developed. When meditators practice concentration, meditation, then concentration or samadhi should become the mental factors that should be developed or should be emphasized. So in this practice of mindfulness meditation, concentration is gained because meditators could develop mindfulness from one moment to next moment, and from one phenomenon to next phenomenon. But when the mindfulness is not yet attentive or precise and energetic, so meditators could not perceive the beginning of the process of any phenomenon. They could not perceive the passing away of that phenomenon clearly. For example, sometimes meditators are mindful look pain. Um, some sometimes the painful sensation has not disappeared. Then another stronger sensation has appeared somewhere else. The meditators did not exercise any degree of control over their awareness or the attention of mind. Definitely, that awareness will move to the other stronger sensation by itself. Sometimes meditators have made some progress in their practice. They might realize that when there's a stronger painful sensation has appeared, then there's the mind as if appear there very instantly. So meditators have to follow their mind and note the other stronger painful sensation. Sometimes meditators mindful of this stronger painful sensation. When it has not disappeared, the mind begins to think of something, or in other words, the mind has to wander away from that stronger painful sensation to the past or to the future, or thinking of something. Or sometimes other mental state can arise due to this pain. For example, worry or dislike. When the pain is did not disappear instantly, and so on. Or there's a feeling impatient. Then meditators have to mindful and note these mental states as they really occur. So in other words, when meditators are mindful of body painful sensation, sometimes they could learn many things by being mindful of their mental state. They come to realize how does their mind respond to their pain. For example, aversion or worry or anxiety. So meditators have a good opportunity to look at their mind and to overcome this mental state by being mindful of them as they really occur. So meditators have to understand that the physical pain or body painful sensation might not disappear. Sometimes meditators are mindful of their body painful sensation. They expect that the body pain will disappear, will go away, and will never come back again. So they have this expectation. But physical pain in Paris known as dukkha vedana. So as long as we are born in this world, we have this body. Almost everyone, either the worldlings means those who have not attained any stages of enlightenment, as well as the noble one, experience body pain or physical pain. But the worldlings experience not only body pain, but they may suffer or they may experience a great deal of suffering in their mind, or mental suffering. But not the noble ones, such as Arahant, the Buddha, or according to commentaries, Anagami, who has attained the third stage of enlightenment, you also will not have any mental suffering, even though they may feel body pain. It's because they have uproots dosa or hatred, one of the three roots of evil completely. So similarly, as mindful meditators, must understand correctly that when they are mindful of their body painful sensation, the purpose is to realize the true nature of pain. The meditators can realize the true nature of pain, whether pain is pain, then at that time defilements, whether aversion, dislike, or feeling of impatience will not arise. No? Or when they can mindful and note their body pain well, then they may not experience any mental suffering at that moment. No? So it's always important to mindful, note whatever mental state that have appeared, sometimes because of the pain. So meditators need to practice patience with the pain, and they learn to increase their level of tolerance gradually. For example, meditators might experience a strong discomfort or body discomfort, pain or aching, numbness at the beginning of retreats. So if they can't sit for an hour, if they know their limit of the tolerance, then sometimes they may not have forced themselves to sit for an hour at the beginning of retreats. They may sit a shorter time, for example, half an hour or 40 minutes. But when they keep on practicing intensively day by day, then they need to make a determination so that they can sit longer and longer and able to develop their virtue of patience by increasing their level of tolerance gradually. So at the beginning of practice, meditators realize that their mind can't stay with one object all the time. For example, when meditators mindful of the process of rising in their sitting meditation, then if there's a stronger object, pain, then meditators have to mindful note the pain. Sometimes the intensity of pain increases. Meditators need to be patient, and if possible, note it continuously, pain, and make sure that their mindfulness or their attention mind staying with the pain or experiencing the pain. They do not have to make a distinction what type of pain, for example, cutting pain, piercing pain, and so on. It's just mindful note pain, They do not analyze the painful sensation. For example, what's the cause? What's the reason? They do not have to conceptualize their experience. For example, when they know pain, they do not have to conceptualize in their mind, conceptualize the experience in their mind. For example, the pace increasing or getting stronger, or is stronger than before, and so on. So meditators have to train their mind to pay full attention to that pain. Full attention means meditators let the mind fully experience the object. At the beginning of practice, meditators can't pay full attention to the pain or any phenomenon. So, in other words, their mind cannot experience fully the process of any phenomenon that has appeared at the time. So maybe they only gain partial experience of that process because they could not pay full attention to it. Their mind still conscious of other phenomena, even though maybe the other phenomena are less distinct than what the phenomenon that the meditators were mindful at that time. So they only gain partial experience. Definitely they cannot realize the true nature of that phenomenon clearly. So similarly, when meditators are mindful of other phenomena, for example, movements of left foot, right foot, or movements of lifting, pushing, dropping of their steps. At the beginning of the practice, they can't pay full attention. For example, when meditators mindful of the movements of their right foot, their mind still conscious. For example, the pressing of the front foot or the body movements, or sometimes some meditators pay attention to the shifting of the weights of the body and so on. So meditators have to increase their effort gradually. So meditators have to realize that mindfulness is full attention. In fact, according to the teachings, our mind can only perceive one thing at each moment. Our mind can only do one work at each moment. So some meditators might be thinking, it's not possible to let the mind perceive one thing or one phenomenon at each moment. But meditators have confidence in the teachings of the Buddha, meditate and have confidence in this training. So they will increase their virya gradually. So when meditators are able to increase their virya, mental effort gradually, then they shall be able to put forth or pay more attention to a process of movements. At the time, the mind could not sense other things so much. So if meditators could increase their virya gradually, then it's possible that when meditators are mindful of any process of movements in their walking meditation, at that time the mind only perceive a process of movements So we can say that at the time, meditators have again concentration because they are able to pay full attention to a process movements or to any phenomenon that has appeared at the time. Similarly, when meditators practice mindfulness of daily routine activities, if they can slow down gradually, they can develop momentum mindfulness at the suitable time, suitable place, or suitable activity. For example, meditators do pay homage to the Buddha in the beginning of sitting meditation. If they slow down gradually, they may be able to pay full attention to a process of movements at each time. So, when meditators are able to pay full attention to an object, to any object, at each moment, we can say that meditators have gained concentration, concentration of vipassana meditation or mindfulness meditation. But meditators also need to put effort to develop mindfulness from one moment to next moment, from one phenomenon to next phenomenon. For example, when meditators are mindful of their walking meditation, at the beginning retreats, they could mindful note the movements, for example, lifting, pushing, dropping, every process movements, they could make one mental noting. So if they can slow down gradually, they may realize that they could note a process movements, for example, lifting or pushing, or 2 or 3 times. So they can increase their mental noting gradually. Whenever they want to increase their noting, they increase by 1 more noting, or the most 2 more noting. When they could note well 2, 3 notings, then they only determine to increase the noting from 3 to 4 notings and so on. But if meditators could not walk slow, because meditators also need to slow down, for example, in their walking meditation, according to their physical condition. If their physical condition is not conducive to them to slow down very much, then they may not have to force themselves to walk very slow. It's because if meditators want to walk very slow, then their mind must control their movements. But if their physical condition is not conducive to slow down, yet meditators desire to slow down, they may not able to practice mindfulness well. So they may choose other activities. For example, if possible, while paying homage, they may do it slower than other activities and so on. Or sometimes they need to lift up their hand to take something or to turn on the light. So meditators can slow down the process of movements gradually so that meditators can mindful note each personally. So when meditators could put forth more effort, definitely their attention mind shall become stronger. the awareness shall become stronger. When the effort is getting stronger, the mindfulness shall become more attentive. So meditators shall be able to perceive the phenomena clearer. In other words, meditators shall gain a clearer and clearer experience of phenomena. For example, when meditators are mindful of every pose and movements, meditators shall be able to perceive the movements clearer and clearer. In other words, they gain a clearer and clearer experience of the process of movements. The meditators could mindful of every pose and movements clearer and clearer. They may be able to mindful of other material phenomena, earth element, or the means such as hardness, or fire element, heat or cold, clearer and clearer. According to commentaries, when meditators are able to mindful of their physical phenomena clearer and clearer, then they begin to be able to perceive their mental states, including their consciousness of cognizing clearer and clearer. So when meditators could develop mindfulness well, and they are able to pay full attention to each phenomenon, or every phenomenon that has appeared at present moment. Then first thing meditators shall realize is that meditators shall perceive the specific characteristics of the phenomena clearly. For example, when meditators mindful of the rising movements of their during sitting meditation, and that kind meditators only perceive a process of movements. And then there's a process awareness. At that time, meditators are no longer sensing the abdomen. They will not perceive that the abdomen was moving. They have no notion or idea that the abdomen was moving, except an experience of the movements. In meditators mindful of other phenomena or sensation, for example, pain, they will experience a painful sensation. They will not, they do not have the idea or notion, for example, which part of the body, which location. Then there's a process of awareness. So meditators could sustain the effort, or sometimes they need to increase the effort. Usually when meditators could realize the specific characteristics of the phenomena clearly, they will realize the relationship between the phenomenon and their mind clearly. Meditators can come to realize that when there's movements, then the awareness, or in other words, the consciousness of knowing will appear instantly with that movements. If the concentration is Kanika Samadhi, meditators will realize that the process of movements, whether rising movements, is only last for a moment. Then, if meditators have developed mindfulness correctly, they will realize that the awareness which has arising In the time, also subject to passing away. In those both processes, subject to passing away. But in meditators did not develop the mindfulness correctly. They could not see the passing away of their consciousness or awareness clearly. Um, so if there's enough process of rising movements, then enough process of awareness will arise. So at that time, meditators will realize that they could only mindful of an object for a moment. In other words, the concentration, when the concentration is also lasts for a moment. If the meditators mindful of a process of rising movements, that movements only last for a moment. Because meditators realize the true natures of the element or movements. There's only movements. So the movements is one of the ultimate realities of Paramatha Dhamma. So when the movements will not last for their moment, or will not last more than a second, then in the next moment, there's a pain appear, then awareness will appear there. That pain is also last for moment. At the time, there's a full attention perceiving the pain, or the mind as if absorbed into the phenomenon. That phenomenon will disappear instantly. Then the next moment may be hot has appeared. At the time, mindfulness only perceive the hot, or there's a consciousness or cognitive teaching. There's a consciousness cognizing. That consciousness merely cognizes hot as hot. So consciousness only cognizes or knows the phenomena clearly. Consciousness, which is the fifth aggregate. So that consciousness has the characteristics, for example, cognizing movements as movements. So it's different from that experience, different from the beginning of practice. At the beginning of practice, sometimes we had the experience that the mind becomes conscious of the abdomen, the movement abdomen. The mind becomes conscious of the foot was moving. But in the ultimately, consciousness merely has the characteristics of cognizing the movements as movements, heat as heat, or pain as pain. If there's thinking, that consciousness of knowing will arise instantly, knowing there's thinking. If meditators have not developed deep concentration, then sometimes when meditators are mindful of the thinking, they do perceive some contents of their thoughts or the thinking process. So if meditators have develop strong Kanika Samadhi. So at the time, the mind only perceives one object, and that object will disappear instantly. If the mindfulness was developed correctly, that awareness which has appeared due to dependent on the object, also subject to passing away. So at the time, the awareness or the mindfulness could perceive one object after another. So it's not possible that it's not possible that meditators sometimes could stay with an object all the time, or sometimes other phenomena can arise. So the mindfulness awareness, although appearing here and there, so at the time meditators you realize that the awareness or mindfulness, or in other words, the conscious and knowing can arise because there's an object. If there's no object, mindfulness or consciousness of cognizing can't arise. So although the object, the mindfulness is as if appear with different phenomena, but the strength of that awareness and concentration are equally the same. It doesn't mean when the mindfulness and concentration, you become weaker and weaker when they were mindful of various phenomena. So sometimes some commentary describe that concentration of the vipassana meditation as vipassana jhana. That means vipassana jhana is an absorption into three characteristics: anicca, impermanence, dukkha, unsatisfactory, anatta, not self. So there's a moment to moment of mindfulness. So sometimes this moment of mindfulness has appeared because of pain. Pain disappears instantly. That moment of mindfulness also disappears instantly. Then the next moment may be heat. Then there's a awareness or mindfulness or consciousness appear instantly. Heat disappear instantly within a moment. Of awareness also disappear. If there's thinking, at the time, by right thinking should become very few. If there's thinking, conscious and knowing will appear instantly, but almost at the same moment with the arising of the thinking, then both disappear instantly. So we can say this moment to moment of awareness, or sometimes the commentary describe it as a one mind movement of observation, one mind movement of mindfulness. So it is one mind movement of observation, that means observing various phenomena, is flowing constantly, continuously. At the time, there's merely experiencing the characteristic of phenomena, for example, movements as movements, and there are three characteristics that are common to this mental physical phenomena: anicca, dukkha, anatta. So this concentration is known as Vipassana Kanika Samadhi. Um, so if meditators could mindful note constantly and continuously from one phenomenon to next phenomenon, but if they have not yet realized or have not experienced clearly the true nature, the specific characteristics of the phenomena, as well as the three characteristics that are common to them, or anicca, dukkha, anatta, then at that time, meditators have not yet attained Vipassana Kanika Samadhi. Although they could mindful note from one movement to next movement, from one object to next object, but they have not yet fully experienced the true nature of the phenomenon. They have not yet able to pay full attention to each object at each moment. Then they have not yet attained or Vipassana Kanika Samadhi. So the meditators aspire to realize the true natures, or to see the true nature of the mental and physical phenomena clearly. The first thing that they have to do is to put forth effort or to develop mindfulness constantly, continuously. So that's why in this meditation, meditators do make progress in the practice mindfulness, then definitely they shall gain concentration and experiences of vipassana meditation. So meditators have to increase the effort so that their mindfulness becomes a full attention. Mindfulness full attention sometimes is also known as bare attention, bare awareness, because the mind is merely experiencing an object or phenomenon without any thinking or analyzing. So this is what I call Vipassana Kanika Samadhi. So the commentary explained as a momentary unification of the mind, because that concentration is, according to commentary, quite similar to absorptions in the samatha meditation, but that absorption is only lasts for a moment. It's totally different from absorption gained by samatha meditators, where the absorption of concentration meditation or samatha bhavana, the mind can absorb into the object concentration as well as meditate. Let samatha meditators put forth effort and are skillful in their practice and so on. So concentration lasting only for a moment. When it occurs uninterruptedly on each phenomenon or object in a single mode, and it's not overcome by opposites. Opposite means the hindrances or defilements. At the time, the mind should be purified from these 5 mental hindrances and other defilements. Then it fixes the mind immovably, but only for a moment, or as if in adoption. So this is a momentary unification of mind, or nervous Vipassana Kanika Samadhi. So we can say that in this meditation, the meditators have gained such concentration. That concentration gives rise to wisdom. If meditators have not yet developed such concentration, then they will not gain any wisdoms, or if they could not develop the mindfulness correctly. For example, sometimes some meditators can see the arising and passing way of the movements of rising, falling in their sitting meditation clearly, but they can't see the arising and passing way of their mindfulness clearly. Sometimes they might be thinking. There's only one awareness or mindfulness that has been mindful of a process of rising, falling movements. Only one mindfulness has been following many different processes of rising, falling movements. Then they cannot see impermanence or anicca clearly. So I wish all mindful meditators could practice patience and able to increase their effort gradually and make progress in the practice mindfulness. The meditators do develop mindfulness correctly and can do it constantly, continuously. Definitely, they will gain concentration and experiences of vipassana meditation eventually. So I wish meditators have confidence in themselves, as well as in the practice of this four foundation of mindfulness, able to practice the mindfulness correctly and able to attain deeper concentration and clearer experiences, more and more penetrative experiences of a vipassana meditation, and able to achieve your final goals soon.